Okay, so today we are looking at section 1.3, which is finding the midpoint of a segment and partitioning a segment on a number line. All right, so we're going to cover the TEKS G2A and G2B. And our essential question is, how can you find the midpoint of a line segment on a number line or in a coordinate plane? So that's going to be the main things that we're looking at. All right, so first off, you have to know the midpoint formula. So I'm going to show you the formula, but I am also going to show you an easy way to write it that may make more sense to some people, okay? So midpoint formula, it is on your formula chart. So the midpoint is to add the x values together and divide by 2, add your y values together and divide by 2. And since it is a midpoint, it is going to be written as a point. So it says to find the midpoint of GH given that G is 7, -5, and H is 9, -1. So if this is x1, y1, and this is x2, y2, then you can, I'm going to do it the formula way first, and then I'm going to show you the alternate way, and you can choose which one works best for you, okay? So if I add the x's together, so that's going to be 7 plus 9 divided by 2. 7 plus 9 is 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. Then I'm going to add the y values together. So -5 plus -1 divided by 2. That's -6 over 2, which is -3. So there is your midpoint. And they're saying find the midpoint. They didn't give me a coordinate, so I'm just going to call it M. Now, the alternate way that may make more sense to some people is to just do this. Take your 2 points, stack them on top of each other, just like you were listing them, and add them together. So you're just going to add them together. 7 plus 9 is 16. -5 plus -1 is -6. Now divide both by 2, and you get 8, -3. So either way, you get the same answer, doing it either way. So now you are going to try number 2 on your own in the video, and then we will check it. All right, so the next thing is finding the end point. Okay, so what if I give you the midpoint? If I give you the midpoint, you don't want to use the midpoint formula because then you're finding the midpoint of the midpoint, not what I want. So the easiest, truthfully, way to think about this is if I'm asking you to find the coordinates of point A. So think about this. So you have this line segment AB, okay? So I don't know if this is even drawn to scale or not, but we're just going to go with it. And M is the midpoint. So it says find the coordinates of A. If M is -1, 2, so if this is -1, 2, and B is at 3, -5. So we need to find what A is. All right. So the way I always think about it is, okay, if I'm looking for A, then I'm going to write this as B, M, A. So B is at 3, -5. M is at -1, 2, and I'm looking for A. So think about your brain going backwards for a second. If you're at 3, how do you go from 3 to -1? So what do you have to do? Well, you're going to have to go backwards, right? Because you're going from positive to negative, so you're going backwards. So you're going to go backwards 4. We'll go backwards 4 more because you're going to have to go backwards 4 this way also. So if 3 minus 4 is -1, then -1 minus -4 is -5. And then to go from B to M, if you're at -5 and you have to go up to 2, how many, you're going from negative to positive, so you're adding. So we're going to add 7. So go ahead and add 7 more so that you can go up here as well. So if -5 plus 7 is 2, then 2 plus 7 is 9. And that's where your point is. So point A would be at -5, 9. Okay, so let's do one more. And then you're going to do number 5 in the questions. So it says find the coordinates of J. So I have K is the midpoint. So if I'm looking for J, actually let me back up just a second. If I'm looking for J, K is the middle and L is where I'm starting. So L is at -8, 6. K is at -5, 10. And I'm looking for J. Okay, so let me change my colors. So if I'm at -8 and I'm going to -5, that means I added 3. Okay, so again, if you just draw your generic line, I know that's terrible, right? So if I have L, K, J, and it doesn't have to be drawn to scale, it just needs to make enough sense. So if this is -8, 6, and this is -5, 10, where is this one? So to go from -8 to -5, well, I guess we're kind of going backwards. So this one is a bad example because well, no, this is okay. So we're going to go from -8 to 5. So we're going to add 3. Okay, so we're going to go to the right. So my example actually did work, so I kind of second guessed myself, which is okay. We do that sometimes. And then to go from K to here, I'm going to have to add 3. So whatever you do the first time, go ahead and do it twice. So if -8 plus 3 is -5, then -5 plus 3 is -2. Now, how do you go from 6 to 10? So from 6 to 10, you're going to add 4. So go ahead and add 4 more, and you get 14. Okay? So now you are going to do number 5 in the questions. All right, so now, if we are talking about a midpoint of a segment, what exactly is happening? Okay, so the midpoint of a segment, so the midpoint of a segment is a point that divides the segment into 2 equal parts. Okay, and it is noted with these little tick marks. Okay, so since they have matching tick marks, then that means they are the same length. So a line, ray, or segment that intersects a segment at its midpoint, okay, so B is our midpoint here, is said to bisect. Bisect means to cut in half, 2 equal pieces. The segment, and this is called a segment bisector. In the diagram to the left, B is the midpoint. Okay, B is the midpoint. And it is the midpoint of segment AC. And line L, so line L, remember from before, you can name a line by using a lowercase letter. So line L is the segment bisector. I guess I should probably not write in cursive. So it is the segment bisector of AC. So B is the midpoint of AC, and line L goes through the midpoint, therefore it is a segment bisector. Okay? All right, so here's some examples. If Q is the midpoint, so if Q is the midpoint, as soon as they tell you this is the middle, go ahead and put your tick marks. Make sure you're marking your pictures. That's huge deal for your eyes to visually see things that are congruent. If Q is the midpoint, that means these two are equal. So therefore, 7x minus 16 is equal to 4x plus 2. Now this is why we did so much algebra review. So we're going to find the value of x. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So we get 3x minus 16 equals 2. And we're going to add 16 to both sides. And we get 3x equals 18. And then divide both sides by 3. X is 6. So now that we know what x is, we could plug it in if we wanted and see how far it goes. So we'll do that in number 7. So this time it tells me h is the midpoint. If this is equal, or if this is the midpoint, put your tick marks here because these two are equal. All right. So we get 5x plus 2 is equal to 9x minus 10. All right. So now I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides. I always move my variable to the left. It makes more sense when we start doing inequalities. So 5 minus 9 is negative 4x plus 2 equals negative 10. And I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Always do the opposite when you're going to the opposite side. So negative 12. And then we are going to divide by negative 4. X equals 3. Now it says to find GH. Make sure you're answering what it wants you to find. GH is this piece right here. This piece is 5x plus 2. Well, if x is 3, that means 5 times 3 plus 2. So that's 15 plus 2. So GH is 17. So if this piece is 17, well, this piece is 17 because remember they're equal. And if that's the case, then that means the whole thing, just a little extra bonus information here, is 34. You are going to do number 8 in the question. All right, last part of our lesson is talking about ratios. Okay, ratios, they compare two different quantities. It says how much of one thing there is compared to another thing. So ratios can be shown in different ways. So you can use a semicolon, or sorry, a colon, and separate the values like 1 to 2. And you're going to use the word 2 when you're talking this. So if I said you're not going to go 1 colon 2, you're going to go 1 to 2. And then use the word 2 to separate the values. You could say 1 to 2. So those are just two different ways that it can be expressed. So if we're going to partition a line segment, so partitioning a line segment is dividing that line segment into the given ratio. So the two numbers in the ratio must add together to equal the total number of pieces. So for example, label the point P that partitions the line segment AB into a ratio of 2 to 3. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So there are 5 pieces and they're equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I want a ratio of 2 to 3, that means 2 pieces compared to 3 pieces. So that means this point right here is point P. Okay, so this is 2 to 3. So your P is kind of acting as the colon in the picture, okay? So this one says that label the point P that partitions this segment into a ratio of 1 to 4. So 1 plus 4 is 5. So there should be 5 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 section compared to 4. So 1 section compared to 1, 2, 3, 4, compared to 4 sections. So point P will go here. You are going to do the next two in questions. All right, so here is a crazy formula. All right, so here in this slide, we just talked about partitioning. But if they actually had numbers involved, where would those points be? So I'm labeling XP because later we're going to talk about in the coordinate plane, so there'll be X's and Y's. You do it the same way. So if I want to know where point P is, then you start with the beginning number, then you add the ratio. So we're going to call this A plus A over B. So if this is 1 to 2, this would be your A and this would be your B. Okay. So I'm going to call this piece right here, let's just call it K. So your first number plus K times, now this, if like from section 1.2 where we did distance, this is the distance between your two numbers, okay? So we're going to call this distance. So these are what the words mean, all right? So your point P that you're looking for is located at, you take your first location and you add K times the distance. So it's a fraction of the distance. So let's talk about what that looks like. So on a number line, point C is located at -4. So here's point C. Point D is located at 6. At what point must P be located so that the directed line segment from C to D is partitioned in a 2:3 ratio? So remember I said this was your A and this is your B. So it's 2 plus 3, which is 5. So that means between here and here, there have to be 5 equal pieces, just like we did in that first activity, okay? So the formula says A over the total. So 2 over the total. So your K is 2 over 5, okay? So point P is located at your first number, -4, plus 2 over 5 times the distance between 2 and 5. And I don't know why I wrote that as a 6. That should be the letter D. So this should be the letter D. So the distance, all right, so remember the distance, how far is it from 4 to 6? So we got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 steps from -4 to 0. And then from 0 to 6, there's another 6. So the distance is 10. Okay, so your distance is the first number minus the second number, and it's the absolute value. Okay, so point P is located at -4 plus 2 times 10 is 20. 20 divided by 5 is 4. -4 plus 4 is 0. So point P is located right there. So P is located at 0. So if you will use this box as your formula, just think about this. This is a little easier to look at if you think about what the components mean. So this is like your horizontal distance. All right, so you are going to try number 10 in the questions. All right, last one. So a choreographer uses a number line to position dancers for ballet. Dancers A and B have coordinates 5 and 23. So they didn't give us the picture this time. So just draw a number line. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to say, okay, 5 is here. 23 is here. It says A and B. Respectively means if I list A first, then the first number goes with A. B comes second, so the second number goes with B. Respectively just means they line up in a list. Respectively, okay. Dancer C stands at a point that is 5/6 of the distance. So that means K is 5/6. So 5/6 of the distance, that means there should be 6. So see how this is already in fraction form for us? It's not written as 5/6. So you don't have to worry about converting it. It's already created in a fraction for you. So that means dancer C is it's going to be standing closer to B than A because they're 5 steps out of the 6 away from A. So what is the distance? So the distance between A and B, so 5 minus 23. So if you did 5 minus 23, you would get -18. But remember, it's the absolute value, and distance can never be negative. So my distance is 18. So point P is located at your first number, 5, plus K times your distance. So we get 5, so point P is equal to 5 plus 5 times 18, so 5 times 18, and then you want to divide by 6. So you get 15. 5 plus 15 is 20. So point P is located at 20. So that means like right here would be your point P. Okay, use that formula. Your point is the first number plus K times your distance. Okay, think about what those things mean. And if you find them separately, then you just plug them in. They're super easy. And you are going to do number 12 in the questions. So I will see y'all in class. Have a great day.